Welcome to You Know His Name, a 007 podcast. I'm Tony Artiga, and I'm once again joined by my co-hosts, John Morgan and Rick Rodriguez. How you guys doing today?
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing?
So today, we're going to be talking about the second Daniel Craig Bond film, the oft-rated, just rated, Quantum of Solace. So, Rick, do you want to give us a quick synopsis of Quantum of Solace?
I had a feeling you were going to throw the ball my way.
I can take it if you want.
No, I'm going to give it a shot. So the movie, I guess the movie was 2 years after Casino?
Yeah, 2008.
But it starts immediately after, sort of.
2 years after Casino Royale, but it starts literally 2 seconds after Casino Royale.
Or if you want to be literal, it starts 2 years after, and Bond has been being chased with Mr. White. It's been this long 2-year journey to get to this meeting.
Yeah.
No, it starts. Yeah, right. It starts in media res. It's a car chase. With Mr. Bond having Mr. White. He's got him for answers. He's being chased by people we don't know. And basically just culminates in a meetup with M and some other MI6 agents, in which it sets up the notion of there is a larger entity and or organization that is doing nefarious dealings throughout the world. And so basically this adventure is just James Bond uncovering what that organization may be, and then discovering the key villain, who is essentially what do you want to call it, a corrupt business oil tycoon baron,
a water tycoon baron.
At the end you realize it's water. He
prides himself as being a world philanthropist, and
but it's all a sham.
Yeah, well he's like a he's like a green planet nut.
Green, I think, because it's Dominic Green, and it's clever because it's Green Planet. That's his organization.
Yeah,
that's his business. And that's the plot. And because this guy, really what it is it's a whole thing in South America, and about the destabilization of countries, big corporate entities that come in there and basically, ransack and loot the resources at the expense of the actual country, the actual people. Mm-hmm. But the internal quest is James Bond trying to reconcile the fact that his girlfriend's dead. And he's mad, but he's not letting himself be mad. Instead, he's just murdering the world. In a kind of retribution that he won't acknowledge himself. The whole movie, it's essentially the whole movie is James, you okay? I'm fine,
he just wants revenge, and he can't just get it because that person's just not out in the open, and he's got to stay.
That's the weird part of the movie is that. Well, I guess we can get into it, but the main crux of the story of the film is Bond's out on a mission, but the movie is not really his revenge movie.
Well, here's the
it's someone else's revenge movie.
Yeah, exactly. Now here's the
can't wait to talk about how fucking stupid this is. Continue.
Okay. So
can we do a quick I'm a little bit more positive than John.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't want to interrupt Tony. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, it's not that. I think we should just do a quick
You're right, Ricky. Let's interrupt Tony.
Yeah,
fuck you,
John.
Tony.
I don't want to interrupt Tony.
Style.
And Rick's no, fuck that guy.
No, I insist that we interrupt Tony.
We interrupt. So thank you, Rick, for that wonderful synopsis. So just a little couple of key notes here. Dominic Green is played by the always engaging Matthew Amalric.
Yeah, he had that little moment. He had that little moment there in the mid-aughts.
Yeah.
Where he was in a lot of Hollywood stuff.
Yeah. Olga Kurylenko plays the main leading lady, Camille Montes.
Is this her first Hollywood movie?
I don't think it's her first Hollywood movie. I think it's early on in her Hollywood movie career, though. I
would say The Break, right?
Yeah, I think if anything, if I remember correctly, I think she was in Max Payne. No, she was in Hitman first. Ew. And then she,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Remember
and
that?
Then she was in Bond.
I do remember him.
So and then also Giancarlo Giannini returns as Renee Mathis. Gemma Arterton. I think this is her first big Hollywood movie.
Okay.
MI6 agent Strawberry Fields. Haha.
Get it? The Beatles.
Get it? It's like listening to the Beatles without earmuffs. And then of course you have, ironically enough, David Harbour is randomly in this movie.
Well, it's easy to say that now,
Yeah.
but David Harbour was, the fucking working character actor, so
Yeah.
it's not like, what the fuck is David Harbour doing here? It's like he was a working actor, dude. He did stuff.
So, fun fact: Alfonso Cuarón has a cameo in this movie as a helicopter pilot, and Guillermo del Toro provides some voice work for some of like the gadgets and stuff throughout.
Yeah, because he's buddies with Mark Forster. They're buddies with him
for sure. So let's get into it, because Rick, I think you brought up an excellent point. It's not really Bond's revenge. I think the thing about and when I first saw this movie, I was really disappointed because like I really wanted to see what's Daniel Craig's version of a revenge plot. But when I saw it, that there's something dawned on me. It was that so much that watching, I think there was a thing there, and there was a kind of a back and forth with him and Camille, where her pursuit for revenge kind of allowed himself to feel his loss about Vesper. So it became less about like, oh, this is, if I don't look at this as Bond on a revenge plot, it's really about Bond processing whatever grief or whatever feelings of betrayal he had as after Vesper's death. And then from that point of view, I actually found the film quite fascinating. It's probably still my least favorite of the Craig films, because my whole thing with it was, whereas Spectre was a Bond film with identity crisis, at the very least, it was a Bond film through and through. My big thing with this movie is that it's almost ashamed of being a Bond film. But the thing that I actually appreciated rewatching it this time is that it actually feels like a Fleming story. It actually feels more like an Ian Fleming. Like I could see Ian Fleming writing something like this, and and almost as if this is an adaptation of one of his books without any of the frills that, or any of the touchstones that would become famous with the Bond films, like gadgets and stuff like that, or any of the style. It's also apparently the most violent Bond film. There, according to this article that I found, there are 250 acts of 250 depictions of violence that are trivial or severely violent, and it's very.
What do you mean by trivial? Like somebody kills a fly? Like,
I mean, pretty much. But the thing is, the reason the number is significant is because this is also the shortest Bond movie. It's under an hour and 45 minutes, I think.
God bless it.
Yeah.
I wish it felt that short.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the shortest Bond film in the canon. And I guess that's one point in its favor. Spectre, for however much I extol, like, hey, at least it's a Bond film, like that movie kind of overstays its welcome. I don't feel Quantum of Solace like overstays its welcome necessarily, at least not in terms of length. But those are my takeaways. I have some quibbles with it, but overall, I'm more positive on this movie than most people are. And I think I think it's safe to say I'm more positive on it than John. But I actually like to get into what John's thoughts on the movie were.
Poorly edited.
I definitely agree with that criticism, especially in the beginning.
And I'm not even saying like it wasn't edited at all. It was clearly cut way too much. And they didn't even cut things that they should have. It seems sometimes when I'm watching the movie that the editor is intent on fitting every single piece of coverage that the first and second unit got for the entire movie. And how long that shot needs to stay on screen doesn't even matter theoretically in terms of the theory of editing. It's just, it comes off as very formless. I understand the chaotic take and approach to the editing format, especially in the editing of the action scenes. It's very prevalent, obviously, in the opening chase. The fast cutting is very chaotic, and it's supposed to create this disorientation. Then later, when you see, the Sienna chase, which we'll talk more about, There is a lot of quick cutting. Then sometimes in the more just standard dialogue scenes, exchanges between characters, plot points, there's just erratic editing.
Well,
Suddenly,
those scenes don't seem to get to breathe.
Yeah,
no.
that's a
And that's
big
what I'm
problem.
saying. There's this the editor is very concerned about getting out of the scene, it seems, as fast as possible. And then sometimes some scenes do breathe, and then the shots and takes like run. And I'm like, make
Yeah.
a fucking decision. Like, either you're going to make this movie a quick cut type of endeavor, or you're going to commit to your style from the start.
The only
to the
scene,
end.
the only scene I can think of that's like that is when Camila and Bond are stuck in the cavern, in which they discover that it's really about water and not oil.
Yes,
And she
that
tells her
scene
story,
really
and
slows
that scene
down.
just kind of like it becomes a scene.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just the editing. It seems like the whole production and the whole movement of the film itself, because I was just thinking about what Tony was bringing up, that it's not really a James Bond movie. It's like that thing, and I know maybe I bring this a little too much, but it's like there are certain traditions that like I kind of feel like they're necessary just for good storytelling. Like, you want that scene where Bond and the villain size each other up. You kind of get that here. They do meet, but it's so quick.
Yeah.
Because the movie is restless. It wants to keep going and keep it moving. Then it's like, no, it's okay. I want to see these guys talk and have that moment where they talk to each other.
Well,
the big template for that is Dr. No and Bond having fucking dinner.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you're gonna veer from the tradition, I want to at least see something. You replace it with something that still has that feel to it. You know what I mean? Where, where if you're gonna not have it be, if you're not gonna necessarily make it like the Bond films of old, like there's still things you can do to sort of amp up that feeling that you're still in this and getting the same like feeling from a Bond film. Like, I think Casino Royale struck that balance really nicely. It didn't have Moneypenny, it didn't have Q, it didn't have gadgets, the car didn't do all these crazy things. It was still a car, it was still just a car, but it was still a great looking car.
Yeah, but you had a
great villain.
I just want to finish my thought though. Like, I think no, it's all right. I think the whole movie lives and dies in the editing room.
Yeah.
And this is like a clear sign of that. And there are times when the movie is working and there are times when they're not. I think the action scenes are way too choppy. It's so difficult to focus on what the fuck is going on any single moment. And I know that the director wants you to feel disoriented. And it's an interesting concept, but it is also following some very common trends of the time. It's clearly influenced by the editing style of Bourne movies, even especially in the action sequences. But there are moments where Bond is walking up. There's a moment where he's walking up a flight of stairs, for example, and he turns a corner. And then we cut to a low angle of him from downstairs, of him walking.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to the shot earlier of him. And I'm like, why are we cutting? Like, there's no decision or reason behind these cuts sometimes. Some shots are just used and you don't know where to look. And you're looking at a shot, you're like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be looking at right now. And it's like the director and the editor, I guess, just assume that your eye will be drawn to what they know is important in the frame, but the shot is not set up properly enough to draw your eye to the central action as they see it.
I think it's
these are poor calls. These are just bad calls being made in the editing room. And I think that someone really should have scrutinized the cut of this film before letting it out.
And I agree with that. And I think it's made all the more frustrating because I actually think that there are some moments in this movie that are actually very well edited, that are very cleverly edited.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, it's one thing if like a movie makes some really poor decisions for editing, but they're kind of consistently poor, and you're just like, oh, this guy just didn't know they didn't know what they were doing.
But at least they stick to their guns.
Exactly.
I agree.
It's a consistent thing. This is like, you're kind of highlighting the poor choices you're making by having moments that are like, wow, this is actually really well put together, and then you have other moments where like, what are you doing?
Yeah, there also is just some like lack of focus, I feel, in the story department from the start. While I know it is a direct sequel from Casino Royale, and the reveal at the end of the car chase is that Mr. White is in the trunk of his car.
Yeah.
Like you don't like.
I
didn't even it's fine, don't get me wrong, but like if you were going to double feature this back to back from Casino to this, you know, I know it sounds like kind of silly because there's like a rule of thumb in you know, directing and screenwriting, and to get in and out of a scene as fast as possible, and they start so late, like we don't know that Mr. White is in the trunk of his car until the end of the chase. But I'll tell you, I was kind of more interested how he got him in the trunk of his car beforehand, and then got into a chase. Like when the scenario was set up, I get more excited to see how it's going to resolve. And instead, there's no exposition on what we're walking in on. And the presumption that this is a continuation of the last movie I saw is kind of fucking bullshit, because the whole style of the editing and the shooting is way fucking different. That they blow out the highlights on everything. And whereas Casino Royale is like such a well-lit film and is not relying on nuclear blowouts when they're outdoors. And I understand the stylistic choice to do things like that in this movie, especially since it thrives on that desert landscape and they want it to feel hot all the time. And it's like, it's fine. It's a good choice, but it also doesn't remind me or look anything like the last movie I saw. So looking at it as a direct sequel, it is very hard to access immediately. And it's something that while I was trying to get over these choices that they were making, or lack of choices that were being made, I didn't care about the characters. I agree with you guys that it's really interesting to watch Bond deal with grief, but I think it's got to be one of the most flaccid ideas for a James Bond movie, because it doesn't lend to the excitement and the fun of this character and the franchise as we know it. And the movie is a big fucking downer. I also learned nothing by the end of it about revenge.
Because Bond doesn't really go through anything.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
He's a more passive character this time around.
I mean, he's being active.
Yeah.
He's going to hotels and fighting people. He's doing a lot of action hero stuff.
He's doing the altruistic hero thing and trying to stop the bad guy, and that's his job. But his whole personal involvement has less to do with Olga Kurylenko's character, and like that he starts to get invested in her problems. It's unearned, you know. It's
it's very cursory. He's like there, but he's not there.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's like, it's not, to me, the most exciting James Bond adventure, and for that reason, like, I got really bored throughout, and I got really upset that they were building it up that this was a very off the book style adventure. We just watched that Timothy Dalton one where what was it, License to Kill?
Yeah, License to Kill, yeah.
I think that movie did a better job at handling the whole like the whole like your status is revoked and you're operating outside your mission parameters. You're no longer an agent of and you know, in this movie they try and build up like, oh, Bond's loose cannon, we can't control him, yada yada. And but there's nothing getting in his way, like, and that's something that's kind of a problem I have with License to Kill as well. But it's not as if though MI6 is trying to intercept Bond throughout this whole problem, and they don't even sympathize with him about anything that happened in the last movie. There's almost no mention of it. He doesn't seem to have any. He doesn't seem to really have. Oh well, no. The people. Well, when he talks with Mathis, he's the one who's supposed to open up that very personal side of him, because we remember him from the movie before.
Well, M brings it up when they're doing the case. I mean, they don't get like heart to heart
but that's the thing. Here's the thing. This is where there are a couple points where I agree with you. There are a couple points where I don't agree with you. Where I do agree, is that you're right. This has little of the style that we're used to from the Bond films. You're absolutely right about that, and it's a whole downer. It's probably the movie that's probably the least fun out of any of the Bond films. Um, and which is but the weird thing is as a fan of the Fleming books, and not all of them have that sense of style and whimsy, especially the earlier ones. This reminded me something more of that vein. So it's still kind of it's still because of my connection. Maybe it's because of my connection to the literary Bond. I kind of have I still have get some of some of the Bond scratch is still itched. Sorry, some of the Bond itch is still scratched from this a little bit, but simply on a cinematic level, totally agree with you there. I I don't actually hate the way that the openings pre-title sequence is structured in terms of the reveal is at the end. It's just hard to get invested because or have any sense of what's going on, because instead of like an engaged version of, oh my god, what's this is so cool, this what's
Well,
going on,
let's
you're
start
literally
with that. Let's
well,
start
yeah,
talking about the
but
pre-title
yeah, for
sequence.
sure, but let me just get through what I wanted to say real quick.
Sure.
What it's like, there's a difference between saying like, oh my god, what's going on, this is very interesting, what's going on, versus okay, literally, what the fuck is going on. And
What the
that's
fuck is happening?
What
That's
is
how that
happening?
opening is.
And
I mean,
and
I think it kind of starts cool though.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a good chase. I
Yeah.
mean, if we can get right into it, like I
Yeah,
think
let's
the
do it.
opening's pretty tight. I think the whole chaotic editing style in that whole scene is like totally appropriate and lends really well to the action, and it gets you involved, and it is a strong opener. I think where I start to kind of derail is like, I know it sounds silly because we're talking about a pre-title sequence, but the more we've been watching these pre-title sequences usually have a story. And while I know we're coming off the heels of another movie, it's a very bold choice to not include any story before getting into the chase.
I think that's the thing, is that
Yeah.
the choice to make it so frantic and crazy. And yeah, I mean, like the theory is like, yeah, they're using every setup, but it's sound. That's a lot of setups.
Yeah.
I don't think they cut back to one shot. I mean, I'm probably wrong on that, but probably rarely in the whole sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Every shot is a new shot.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think the thing with me is that it starts cool because it's like a helicopter shot, pre-drones going into this under this kind of next to the water, not like a bridge, like a tunnel.
Yeah.
And it's cutting to images, cutting back to that shot, cutting to images, cutting back to the helicopter, and the music's like nah, 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 and so you're like, it's very much revving up. It's like, here we go. But when it does, it goes from like 0 to 1,000,000.
Yeah.
It was almost like too much, because then it's just like, get ready for, and then you're just like,
just the thing. It's
shit,
like I don't mean to tread too hard on the concept of just starting guns blazing. Like I really like that
I think
idea.
It's a style thing. I just
think for me, like I didn't put together that the guy in his trunk at the end of that scene was Mr. White. And when they address it after the fact, I suppose it's forgivable, but like, I don't know, man. Like, did anybody, it sounds so fucking stupid when I'm saying it, but like, how did he get him in the trunk? I know that sounds fucking stupid, but it's fucking stupid because like, he's so protected in the last movie. And it's not like he just throws him in the back of his trunk and then we roll credits. That would have made sense.
I don't think so, man. Because like at the end of the first one, he's sniping him in the leg, and he gives his big line.
It's fine, but like, how then do we get into a balls out car chase? Is another question. Because if he's there and he feels so secure,
well, that's where I kind of say, like, if it had been designed a little differently, where you can still have like the kind of idea of the first couple of shots, you know, the opening of the sequence,
and then all of it when they're on him.
Well, yeah, like Bond's driving. You think Bond's just driving.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just like this luxurious thing. He's looking cool. He's like looking at his watch. He's got to be somewhere. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, car.
See, that would have helped set up a story.
Witty line, like something. I'm not a writer, so
I'm going to have to make a detour.
Bond in my shitty script just goes, here we go again. And then like a car chase ensues. huge fucking thing. I mean, like the choreography and the idea of the chase is really good. It's just the frantic editing. And so then when it closes with him just like getting to where he is and opening, because he says a funny thing, I think it's like
time to get out.
Time to get out. Right. That's funny.
Yeah. It is. It's nice and it's a fun reveal and it works. But I think, just that one beat in the beginning where we can kind of be
we can get into it.
Ease into the story and just embrace the style of this James Bond movie franchise that we know so well and forget about what happened in the last movie. Because that's the thing. You see, I went into this movie forgetting what happened in the last movie.
Right.
Because I don't want to think about it. I want to watch the movie. So when I come in, the reveal should be like, oh yeah, I didn't remember what happened. Yeah.
Right.
Like when he got him out of the fucking car, I'm like, I don't remember you put him in
probably because you're exhausted.
There's that, but
that's the problem, and that's the double-edged sword.
I thought you were gonna say double entendre.
Double entendre. I actually was going to, and then I kind of like corrected myself. But that's the problem with that sequence, because I don't need a setup. I don't need it to be like, oh, I literally need to see Bond throwing him in the fucking trunk.
No, I'm not.
Totally fine.
I agree. I think Rick has a good take on how we can do that safely without and still get the same reveal at the end.
Exactly. Like and the way I would do it, I'm actually totally fine with just jumping in the chase. Mm-hmm. I totally would have done something where like they're communicating to us, like he's got him in the trunk, and you can kind of do a thing where, oh, but who in the trunk? And the thing is, like, if you play the mystery of it, but engage the audience in a way that's like you're actually actively wondering who the fuck is in the backseat of his trunk, and it actually gets you to at least care who he is, even if the reveal doesn't necessarily land. Rick is absolutely right. Because you're so exhausted trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, it's not only that you forget who's in the back of the trunk, it's almost like you don't even care.
I don't. I fucking don't care. I just want to know who's chasing him and why. And it almost doesn't matter, but it's actually the story.
Yeah.
So it's like if we can just kind of set up those basic details.
Can you imagine if Ghost Protocol, like, it was just like, and it immediately started with Tom Cruise running out of a jail? As opposed to what they do in the movie where it's like, there's a prison. That's Simon Pegg. Paula Patton's under the ground. What's going on?
Yeah.
You're panning across cells. Who
just
is
that opportunity.
Who is that throwing a ball against the wall?
Yep.
You just create that intrigue.
Is that Ethan? You know?
I mean, I like your idea, Rick, of saying like he's just taking this nice Italian roadside cruise, and then all of a sudden these guys start showing up, and then we have to put together in our head, you know, why are they pursuing him? But that's an answer we're not going to get. We're not going to get an answer to that question until after, and that's okay.
Well, I think the idea of like it's James Bond. This is what he does. That comes through even in the movie, but. I mean, we're beating a dead horse at this point, but like because of and I get why they were chasing a trend of the time and pushing it even further.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's something that dates the movie.
It really
because
does.
now action movies have gone back to, while still being sharp in editing.
Yeah.
They kind of now understand that, like, okay, we kind of need to know what's going on in the frame.
Yeah, maybe the camera should step back 20 feet and
a couple of times. We can cut to close-ups and detailed shots, but maybe establish where we are, you know.
Yeah, one thing that I did kind of acknowledge, because I remember watching when it started and watching that big helicopter shot as it kind of, you know, starts flying into the mountainside tunnel, thinking about what John said about needing some sort of aerial establishing shot in Spectre when the bomb goes off. And the weird thing is, like, this chase solves that problem, but then creates a whole new set of problems where after that, what the fuck is going on? You don't know.
It's interesting you're bringing up Spectre, because I was thinking about that one directly in comparison with this one, because I think you're right. Like, it's like this movie can shoot really well. It's a well shot film, but then, you know, like they just cannot decide what coverage is the most vital. So it all gets stuffed in there in the fucking edit. Whereas opposed to Spectre, they take their time with every cut. Every shot is very, very carefully chosen, where to cut in, where to cut out. But then like the shots are very like blah, and there's no interesting establishing shots. There's no interesting aerial shots. This movie's chock full of great aerial shots.
Yeah.
Wonderful aerial shots.
People are
To
gonna
the end.
Cut to shit.
People are going to think that people are going to think where it's like, well, damned if you do, damned if you don't with us. But I think the thing is that I think a lot of us are trying to generally say it's like it's a delicate fucking balance.
It is.
Especially with Bond, especially with Bond in this era where, you know, it started the genre that we kind of think of as, you know, the escapist adventure action genre.
Sure.
So it's hard to kind of just give a lazy pass at something when it doesn't quite work, because you want the Bond movies to be great.
And I want any movie I go to see that's going to promise like a big adventure to be great.
Right.
I do. I'm there in the seat rooting for them to make a good movie, and I want to walk out, you know, feeling entertained. But I think just when I'm bringing up stuff like the aerial shots, it's just like the director just understands like scale, scope, what we need to establish, how to, you know, like these are things that get neglected sometimes by directors and good ones at that. I mean, you know, it goes to show like Mark Forster knows where to put the camera.
He does.
But maybe he doesn't know where to cut.
There are some really cool shots, including the boat chase later in the action.
Oh yeah, there's some great.
I was like trying to look, and I was like, "That was cool. That was cool." But
but the cutting
is so fast. I don't know where the boat is.
Yeah. There's a point where Olga Kurylenko in that boat chase is like crouching on the ground and like gets up from behind, I guess like it was like the driver's steering wheel. There's like a little like canopy over it, and she like gets up, and they dedicate an entire cut in close up of her getting up off of the floor of the cabin.
Yeah.
And then they cut back to the wide, and I'm like, you don't fucking need that shot.
Yeah.
Just have her get up. Like it's like there's a point where there's just literally again just jamming every single fucking shot that they got into the cut. They don't know where to. It starts to just become difficult to focus on what every shot is telling you. And I guess at that time people were just like, people are information overload these days, man. Like you can just put any images on screen as fast as you want and people will process them.
But I remember being in the theater for this one, and it was like you could feel the audience like, Jesus Christ. Like,
yeah. And that's the funny thing. This is one of the few Bond movies where I will say I probably enjoyed it more watching it on the small screen than I do on the big screen, because like on the small screen, I'm just able to focus a little more. It's not a much improved focus, but I'm able to focus a little more, and I'm able to kind of like see details. Like
pause.
That's not
How big is your TV though?
Well, my TV is 32 inches. So
I'm kidding.
So. But
what the fuck? Hey, my TV's 32 inches here.
Corner to corner.
Yeah, but but that's the truth. You know, it shouldn't be like that with a Bond film where like, oh, you know what, on the small screen this plays a little bit better. It's like, wait, what? Did I just say that about a fucking Bond film?
Right.
Yeah, but no one ever expected these movies to continually be rewatched, but it just happened.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but those are the ones that are most watchable, or the old ones that were meant just for theater.
Yeah, man. I do want to move on from the editing because I think we all kind of agree that the editing.
Yeah, it's okay.
Let's talk about the editing.
Let's talk about the editing. I think
I want to get more into like the plot and what happens after the opening, but it's good to talk about the editing and how it makes sense to want to bring it up, especially with that opener.
No, for sure. I mean, let's be real. We could probably dedicate this entire episode about how like where this editing fails and this moment. We could absolutely do.
It's a common complaint when people go, I mean, and that's how weird is that?
Yeah, it's hard to make a complaint like that for general audiences, but yeah,
but I mean, it's what I mean. Like when a general audience is just like, man, the editing it's like someone fucked up, you know?
Yeah, for
usually people don't notice the editing, and there's wildly edited movies. I mean, like every Oliver Stone movie in the 90s, nobody was like,
I mean, for Christ's sake,
the editing, you know, like
I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody, one of the fucking most trashed edited films that I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Never saw it.
You're not missing anything.
I didn't see it either, but I saw that scene that everybody talks about where they're sitting at that like I don't know, it's like some common area outside, and they're all sitting around like a picnic table.
They're sitting at a table like talking about like contracts and shit. And I'm just watching it, and like this got nominated for best edit. All right, you know what? Whatever. I'm out.
It won.
It won. You know what?
Didn't it win?
On for this subject.
It won.
It won. Yeah.
John Ottman.
I don't want to. I don't want to choke the life out of something, so I'm just gonna move on from this subject.
Yeah. Let's move on to something more like
Yeah.
the
I
story.
wanted one thing I
Like
want to
Bond.
talk about is one thing that hit me more so this time than any
You
other time
okay?
I've seen this movie. I fucking love Daniel Craig's performance in this movie.
He is good in the movie,
I would actually take it a step
and
further.
he's still real. He's
Yeah.
still real spry in it.
Very spry, and
Physically.
I think there's something about this performance. It might be maybe my favorite performance of his as Bond
Why?
in the four movies.
I want to know why. Tell me why.
I want to hold off on that because I love Casino Royale. He's so great in Casino Royale. I think Casino Royale is objectively his best all around performance. But there's something about the subtleties that he uses in this movie that you just feel like the rage kind of like at the tipping point in moments, or like his pain and his grief, but he never really betrays it. And like the moment where with Mathis, where he's just like 6 Vespers in, and fucking Renee's like, do you need a pill? Do you need anything? Is just like, no.
Need a
No.
pill to sleep.
And like it reminds me of like, we've all been like those moments where with like a friend where they're like in pain and we're like want to help, and they're just like, nope, I'm okay, and that they're not.
No, let's just do the podcast.
Yeah.
It was a nice humanizing moment, and
Yeah.
Mathis is the
That's
one
a breathing scene.
It's a breathing
Yes.
scene.
It's just 2 shots. It's just them.
It's 2 shots.
Thank God.
Thank God. And there's stuff like that. Like even when M fucking asks them like she like what I think the line of dialogue is like, you have to be a pretty cold bastard to not want revenge for the death of a woman, the person you loved, and shit.
Yeah.
And just like the whole like you don't have to worry about that whole interaction between him and M is just like holy shit. Like it feels like a journey. Craig, I feel like made something out of very little that was on the page, and like that's why I'm most impressed with his performance in this one. Like Casino Royale, wonderful performance, probably his best performance, but you're working with great material. This one, you're kind of not working with a lot of material, and he still puts in a fucking phenomenal performance. I mean, that scene with Camille is so good after the whole air sequence, and and like he's hearing her out. He has that moment where he even apologizes, and it just feels so human, and it feels so relatable. It feels so vulnerable, but it doesn't feel like weak. I don't know. I was just very taken with his performance. So I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, I mean, just real quick, a little snippet of that. I mean, this script or this production was notorious because it started shooting during the strike of 2007. Yep. So they didn't quite have a finished script. And I wonder if that kind of is why you have scenes that are just like, maybe that lended itself to the style of the movie of like, grab, go. We're only on this location for 2 hours, or something.
Well, they were shooting in Venice for some sequences.
They shot in 6 countries.
But did they shoot in Venice?
No, Siena.
My mistake. Yeah, but just shooting in Italy in general is hard. It's a busy tourist location in general.
Yeah, I do.
They don't believe in sound.
One quick thing about the action sequences in this movie. I read this when it came out. I'm sorry, Rick. Did you want to say something?
I was just gonna say, don't bring up the editing.
No, not the editing.
Your challenge is to talk about the action without talking about the editing.
And trust me, I have a big tidbit that I have about that editing.
I can't wait to talk about the Siena church sequence.
Yeah, although I want to hear John's thoughts on Daniel Craig's performance. Sorry, let me just to keep on topic. I apologize. No, John, what are your thoughts on Daniel Craig's performance?
You don't have to apologize, Ty.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I don't have to answer that, John.
You don't have to answer that, Colonel.
I'm surprised you guys, or you're actually so in awe of Craig's performance. I think for me, I mean, I guess it's just a little difficult for me to detect a performance going on with so little to do. But I think you're right. I think he has all the subtleties and everything down to keep you engaged.
It might be his charisma. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
he's
just
doing a good job. He is. And I don't, I'm not.
he doesn't look miserable like he looks in Spectre, you know?
Yeah, he looks really like
Tired.
just uninterested in the whole
Yeah.
adventure.
I don't know
But
if I agree with that with Spectre, but we've talked about Spectre enough.
I
On
think
episode 4, I don't know what episode it is.
I just think Daniel Craig looks the same all the time. He's a very stoic
I don't think so.
individual, and it's kind of a little difficult. I mean, he's great for film acting because his expressions are so subdued, and so he's so good at not giving away too much because he doesn't put that much out there to begin with. So
Well, he's a minimalist.
yeah, he is, but like he can't even control that. It's the limits of his expressions. He doesn't.
I
have
don't
a lot
agree
of
with that. I think he has a lot going in the eyes, and he works very subtly.
I'm not saying
I don't think
performer.
I don't think he's a what's that phrase? Something to rasa, a tabula rasa, where it's just like nothing.
You mean a Ryan Gosling?
A Ryan Gosling? Well, he's Ryan Gosling's he's a Mona Lisa. I'm gonna talk softly and do a little smirk. What am I thinking? Did I fart, or am I flirting with your wife? You know?
But I don't.
Gotta be a award nomination.
I don't think he is a Mona Lisa. He's very much a. He's an act. But you know what? To harken back to those classical painters and sculptors and whatnot, he's more of an atom because he's a very sort of like statuesque figure, very good looking, and you know.
The face he pulls.
I know
Gosling does that.
I know. I understand. I get what you're saying. I'm saying though that with Craig, the stoicism of the character.
Craig is like an atom.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I thought you meant Gosling. Okay.
Yeah.
No. But I'm saying like his stoicism makes it a little difficult for me to like compare one performance to another from one movie to the next. I'm just kind of like, it's the same fucking face again and again. I don't know. I mean, like, I think in this movie, like I said, there's not a lot his character does. We brought it up earlier. He's very passive. So I don't really have a lot of commentary about his performance. I think it's just good. I didn't even think it was great.
His arc turns out to be passive. Because watching it this time, it was like weird to realize, oh, his revenge is never going to come into play into the story.
His arc is flat. If we can be completely frank about that, he has literally no change throughout the entirety of the film. And yet somehow at the end, we're supposed to have some sort of revelation about revenge, good or bad.
I that's the thing. I don't know if I don't agree that the arc is flat. And now, granted, I think the arc is not flat because of him, not because of the script. But for me, the subtlety of the arc that I really enjoyed about this movie was it's less about how he feels about revenge, but about allowing himself to feel anything about what happened with Vesper. Like that was the arc. And that's kind of and that's where I think the beauty of that arc lies. And I think it works because Craig did such a great job with what was on the script. If it had just followed the script, you're right, the arc would have done nothing. But it's something. There's something about when you feel the arc because of the performance rather than because of the words on the page.
But you don't want to look at the arc. Keep your eyes shut.
That's for our separate discussion later.
It's beautiful.
I just feel like you know, and if we can just kind of talk more about the script and less about Craig's performance just for a moment.
Fair.
I think Korolenko's character has a clearly defined arc.
Yes, that is,
and that makes sense for us to follow from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But I mean, watching Bond deal with his grief on the sidelines of a larger story is so not exciting and very supplementary to something I'm supposed to be involved in. You know, I'm supposed to be very involved in the story, but Bond has a problem, and
they never really come together. It's like,
well, that's the thing. So like, I guess I'm fast forwarding to the end, but the epilogue of this film lends nothing except that he is willing to not fulfill his revenge, and he doesn't seek vengeance.
Yeah.
And decides to what?
Should we explain that? Like what it is that actually happens? Like he finds the guy
Yeah.
who he thought was Vesper Lynn's boyfriend, who she was
Yeah.
protecting. But, and I have to admit, I've always found this whole storyline a little convoluted, even in Casino Royale. Like I still don't get it. If you guys could both illuminate me on it, that'd be great.
I'd be happy to. Yes.
No, because I don't know.
I don't care is the problem.
Well, I mean, just in general, of like what exactly Vesper Lynn's thing was, and then it's like this guy is someone who seduces agents
Yeah.
for Quantum, right? Is that what it
Yes.
was?
Yes.
He's
Okay.
yeah.
And he was in love with her.
Well, she was in love with him,
Whatever.
and the whole thing was that Quantum.
Whatever, love is dead.
Okay.
John's like,
right
am I
along.
right?
Moving right along.
Tell
So
me I'm
at
right.
the end of Casino Royale, and not to go too deep in the woods because I'm sure we'll discuss it when Casino Royale comes around.
Just talk about it.
The idea is that the whole reason Vesper takes the job and tries to steal the money is because she wanted to Quantum, for lack of I guess, blackmailed her into making sure that they won that card game, that Bond wasn't a problem. Then Bond won, and so she's stealing the money for Quantum because she doesn't want Quantum to hurt her boyfriend who they blackmailed, but is a Quantum agent himself.
So it's all a ploy, really, to just get rid of her?
No, it was a ploy to get the money to finance their organization.
Okay.
And being that she's part of the British Secret Service, she was the conduit to make that happen, to make sure
Right.
that they got that funding.
And so for this, it's that
Yeah,
Mr.
so
White is.
yeah.
I guess
so
I just don't understand how we go from that to this oil dude, other than we followed this bill that takes us in a whole different plot.
So it's
But it's Quantum.
It's a very weird. That's one of the failings of the script of this movie. It's like, okay, so how do you go from like, what's the connection from how you get from Mr. White, who is admittedly part of this organization? Oh wait, I remember now, because
Okay.
when Mr. White is interrogated at the top of the movie, and then Bond, there's that agent that Bond chases, who turns out to be a Quantum agent.
Right.
Apparently, through him, they find out that Dominic Green is the next Quantum agent person of interest in finding out who Quantum is.
Okay.
So that's kind of the connection.
But that's what I mean. Then the movie just veers.
Here.
Well, it did. But then the movie, that's what I mean. I guess it's like now it veers into this Dominic thing, which becomes a kind of interesting story that I wish I'd gotten maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I kind of liked all the South America stuff and all the lines about interventionism and corporate interest in these South American countries in which, like we said, like they just use and abuse the resources at the expense of the people.
I like that. I like that a lot too, and I think that there was a way to really tie everything all in a much neater package. You start getting a sense at the top of the movie that the boyfriend is not who he said he was to Vesper, because it turns out that like his body apparently turned up dead, and it's like, nope, wasn't him. We did a DNA check, and then you realize that they're all part of the same sort of,
Quantum of Solace.
White was the contact for Vesper, so if Vesper was doing this for the boyfriend, it stands to reason that the boyfriend is also tied into Quantum in some way, shape, or form, which is why Bond kind of like.
And Einhorn is Finkel.
There you go.
Finkel is Einhorn. Gotcha.
Sure. Which I'm gonna be honest, I didn't figure out until I watched this movie a couple more times.
Got you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's only because, like, okay, I had to fill in a lot of headcanon to sort of, okay, so that makes sense there. Awesome. I should be getting all of this without having to, like...
You were, like, on a board, like, trying to figure out who the head...
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, okay. I mean, now that I get it, I guess it's fine, but whatever. So that's kind of where it is. I'll admit it's very convoluted, and Quantum of Solace is very little to try to
I
make
think that's
that
the weird thing is like
palatable.
Bond is immediately in this seeming pursuit of this thing. I guess it was like you're sitting there watching it, and it's like you're waiting for Bond's personal story to become intermingled with the main story, but it never
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I can imagine where it's like, just have it begin or have a new mission start, and it's just like, how you doing with everything that happened prior?
Well, here's
I'm fine.
another.
Hold on. Like have it with everything he did. Like have it where like that's the past. Now here's a new mission.
Yeah.
And it's like Bond doing a new mission that has nothing to do with all the Vesper stuff, but he's still got Vesper on his mind. And I think that's where it got a little bit hazy, was that it kind of has to do with Vesper, but it kind of doesn't have anything to do with Vesper. So I'd rather they either made one choice or made the other choice, because you're waiting constantly for the drama to intermingle, and it doesn't really, except on a kind of intellectual level of like, yeah, she wants revenge just like me. I'm gonna tell her just use the one bullet, you know.
But my whole thing, and you're absolutely right. But my whole thing is that would have been solved if they like just did something where occasionally he interrogates like one of the quantum agents about like, do you know who this guy is, or some shit like that.
He does.
Yeah.
He keeps asking people who they work for, and then they won't tell him, and so he has to kill him.
They do that Spy Who Loved Me homage.
Yeah, they do, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like,
So I want to talk about the action sequences real quick, because Rick challenged me to not bring up the editing, and
It's a good challenge.
accepted, because this is what I found very interesting about the action sequences. Mark Forster apparently wanted to base all the four major action sequences off a different element: land, water, air, and fire. Which I'm like, what?
But why?
I have no idea.
because he is an artist,
And
No.
that's a big issue with.
and I
with the
want to
movie. Like,
make a statement with my action.
if I want artsy fartsy, like I will go to IFC, and I will. Well, not now, obviously, but we are recording this in March of 2020, so March of 2021. I mean,
To all the aliens listening,
so movie theaters just opened up in New York City. But I'll go to the IFC and watch like a French New Wave cinema film or something like that. I don't want that. In
I don't
a Bond
mind.
movie.
I don't mind artistic gestures in a mainstream movie. I kind of welcome it. It's just it's not going to be everything.
Yeah,
You got to have everything else come together. I mean, I guess that's fine if you wanted to do that.
it's but the real question is why? Why?
I guess a creative choice. I'm playing a little devil's advocate here, but like I get it. Like, you know,
Just because a creative choice is made does not mean that it's a good one.
I didn't say it was, but I'm just, the question was asked like, why do that? And I'm like, they made a decision. They made a choice. I mean, if the action scenes were good, we wouldn't be. And I know now I'm breaking the fucking rule, but if they were well edited,
Ooh.
then we wouldn't be complaining and making fun of the idea of it. I don't think.
Well, I
We
want to
pro-
talk about the
we
Sienna
would-
bell tower sequence, and then we can really talk about what makes a good action sequence, because I argue that that is a very good and well choreographed sequence.
But
Oh, we can't talk about the editing.
we can.
No, we can.
Well,
gonna-
but let's talk about really something besides the editing. And I think it's really interesting to turn the attention to something like fight choreography. They
Yeah,
had
for
a
sure.
really great landscape to work with in that whole bell tower sequence when at the climax of him chasing the double agent.
Yeah.
And they have all the scaffolding and everything and them jumping around and things falling over. And then he's grabbing a rope and all these things and
Yeah, I
all
thought
these
it was
really
awesome.
brilliant ideas working and using the space so resourcefully. I was
Yeah.
like, this is a good action sequence. If only they limited their coverage in the editing room, it would actually be watchable. And I didn't even know what was happening half the time. I had to literally pause 3/4 of the way in and step back to the beginning of the sequence to see what I missed.
See, that was one of those moments where I actually felt the editing was really solid. Not the chase. The editing was super choppy.
Well, they try and
But-
do an Eisenstein thing
Yeah.
at first, where it's like cross-cutting to the horses running, and they're
Yeah.
running.
Oh, it's garbage.
Horses are running.
But when they actually get to the bell tower and they're kind of like hanging and hanging and they're falling and the glass is breaking. By the way, there's so much fucking glass broken in this movie.
Dude.
so much glass.
Glass.
And so much like throwing people through glass and shit. My friend, a buddy of mine, when we saw this movie, he was like, so basically this is just James Bond ruining people's shit. Like he's throwing people into like their living room coffee table through their doors. It's just like he's just ruining their shit. Like what the fuck?
Schick the Geschlechter.
Yeah.
Shoot the glass.
So much glass is broken. But I think that was one of those few moments where like, wow, this is actually really well put together. This is really nicely choreographed. This is really nicely shot. And it's like, where was this level of awareness in the rest of it? You know what
Well,
I
I
mean?
think another sequence that stands out to me as actually being rather good was the aerial sequence
Yeah.
when they're
Yeah.
in the airplane and then they get chased by the MiG.
But
Yeah.
they all have the same problem to me. I mean, like the idea of them and the theoretical choreography that I'm like kind of putting together in my head when I'm watching it
Mm-hmm.
is really good, especially the bell tower one. And the idea of the aerial sequence is good
But the editing is trash.
because it's all the same.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, and in the case of say the aerial chase, you know, that's the thing about aerial chases is like, you know, planes, they go pretty fast, but when you look at them from further away, they don't appear to be going really fast. So like you can kind of rely very much on just the space and the space around them and everything and just offer up shots of that.
Last Crusade.
Yes, a perfect
Yes.
perfect parallel to draw.
So
But
immediately what I thought of, and it's not because of a certain next episode, but that's immediately what I thought of. I'm like, what a difference of choice where we're doing this spastic thing because we think that's what it needs to be, when really it could have very much been slowed down, and the tension of she's coming around again, the plane coming back, and they've got to think of some ways to defend themselves, not have it be, you know, what it is. What's the overall stylistic choice for the action, and I think the movie in general, which is
can I also just point
relentless,
out
frantic thing.
Can I also just point out that this is directed by Mark Forrester, who later directed World War Z, and that movie also suffers. Although we don't see the final Mark Forrester version of World War Z when we get our hands on that movie, but that movie was severely reshot and redirected by committee because of how disappointed they were with the results that he brought in.
So
and I think that should
a little bit.
What's that?
It kind of got weeded into Justice League a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe
I don't want to say that's a very different.
I don't think
set
it's
of
severely, but
circumstances.
the third act and climax was
really hacked,
totally rethought and rewritten and reshot.
Yeah, and to the credit of Brad Pitt now, and because he was an executive producer on the film, he was the one who lobbied for him.
Everyone shits on that movie, but I think it actually, considering all the stories, I'm like, that's a pretty goddamn coherent and functional movie.
Yeah. It is, but for the money that they spent on it, too expensive.
Sure, but yeah, the final film I think is pretty good. I think it gets shit on a lot because
I'm just saying
it wasn't the book.
Mark Forrester kind of has this.
There's a connection there of like.
Well, there's a sort of like a trend I'm noticing like in his filmography where like I'm just taking a look at it right now, and you know he's really great at doing specific stories or interesting stories. Like Monsters Ball or Kite Runner. Both of those movies are very good. You know, even if you're not interested in Finding Neverland, and I know I wasn't when I saw it, it's still a decent movie. It's not exciting to learn how the guy wrote, you know, Peter Pan. It's not that exciting, but it's kind of interesting.
It seems like he's got that Ang Lee thing, where it's like whenever they get hired to do a kind of big blockbuster type event movie, it's like a real severe case of overthinking, which kind of sucks because it sounds like I'm bashing ambition or artistic ambition in a big Hollywood movie. Yeah, and I'm not.
You should.
No, not at all.
No, I'm not. But it just comes off. It seems like they overthink it to the point of like, well, it didn't work. You know, and like there's things I like about Ang Lee's Hulk, but you know, at the end of the day, you have to be kind of intellectually honest and be like, that movie just doesn't work for all of the ambition it has.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I
You
think
know, and I think it's a little bit of that maybe with Forrester. Maybe it seems, I don't know, compared with what happened to World War Z and how this movie kind of comes out.
There
Because
just
there's
doesn't seem to be a lot of navigation into his projects. He seems to just get hired.
yeah,
Mm.
I mean, I think the thing with Mark Forrester in this particular film, and which is kind of my thing with Ang Lee's Hulk, because I agree with you. I will never, ever, ever, ever begrudge any filmmaker for putting in their own artistic stamp on something. That would be impertinent of any of us. But it's more that you have to. I'm trying to find the right word.
Sometimes I think it's just
Yeah,
you can be a small movie and have
Yeah.
these big artistic ideas and gestures, and it still doesn't work.
exactly. And
It
it's
just,
more
I
like
guess it just seems bigger when it's a big movie, especially an
can't
action film.
you can't work against the material, and that's the just the bottom line. Like I wouldn't want Michael Bay to direct Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but I also wouldn't want Ang Lee to direct, Armageddon or The Rock. It's you gotta work with the material, because like there's something to be said about filmmakers excel with certain kinds of stories, and sometimes when you're trying to get a really great filmmaker and have them put their stamp on a story like this, it sometimes feels like putting in a square peg in a round hole. So sometimes it
Maybe,
just
yeah. I
doesn't
mean, it
fit.
depends. I mean, you have
Yeah,
Soderbergh doing the Oceans, you have
yeah,
Nolan doing the Batmans,
yeah. But then
and
again, that's material that is paired really nicely with the director. You know what I mean? Like Christopher Nolan making a Batman film, having watched
but that was not a big.
Prestige. Well, but here's the thing: it's not about whether he was a big filmmaker at the time or not. But if
No,
like,
no. I mean, like,
yeah,
because I remember when he got announced, it was like,
yeah.
oh, really, Nolan?
He
Okay,
was the second
Memento.
choice.
But that's the thing, because in the collective space, when people think Batman, they think the Burton films, the Schumacher films, the '66 Adam West TV show. As a comic book fan, I was thinking of stuff like Dark Knight Returns, Year One, stuff that's more introspective. To see Christopher Nolan being hired, the guy who did Insomnia, Memento, Following, do a Batman film, it's like that works. That really works. Seeing, hearing that the guy who did what is it? What's the Will Ferrell film? Strangers.
Stranger Than Fiction.
Yeah, Stranger Than Fiction. It's like, oh, this guy's gonna do James Bond, the next James Bond film. You're kind of like,
Well, I think it's interesting
right fit.
what you guys are pointing out about like directors making personal films in Hollywood. It's been a trend that's carried over since the start of the big blockbusters like Star Wars and Jaws, when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg went out to prove that you can make a Hollywood picture a very personal film. That all comes down to, what is the value of the story to you thematically? What are you bringing to the material? And when you look at someone like Mark Forrester's filmography, it is not a trend of themes. There is not any sort of trend in material where you're like, oh, I can see why he would be a good choice for that story. I really do just think he just tries to get hired onto movies so he can direct movies. He's not a director who I think considers these thematic elements. Maybe he does, maybe he just doesn't consider them closely enough in a lot of cases. I mean, in some cases he's excellent, but
Yeah,
when you're working on films like Monsters Ball or The Kite Runner that were successful New York Times bestsellers that you don't need to pick apart and reanalyze to constitute a coherent and watchable script, you're safe. But with a movie like Quantum of Solace, which is suffering from a lack of writers because of the strike, this is not someone who can offer up a strong thematic story without a writer there in his corner. He's just not a writer's director. That's okay. But it does make it really hard to get intrigued by what the story has to offer, especially when your main character sort of starts to become a side piece to someone else's vengeance. That's my point.
I mean, I think it's a fair point. I think what you're talking about is what directly might have been the issue with Mark Forrester doing this movie, and I think what Rick and I are talking about is more of a macro.
Yeah, if you want to get macro, I don't think
Yeah.
Mark Forrester should direct movies.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
I will. I don't think Mark Forrester's that great.
I we'll agree to disagree. I think he's made enough films that are really, really great that I think that it's more of a case of so maybe he's not the most versatile director in the world, but when he gets the right material, he can make a damn good movie. But we'll agree to disagree on that one. But I think we can agree on what you on your diagnosis on the fact that he wasn't the right filmmaker for this particular film. That being said, I do appreciate that he brought his touch to it. I have a feeling you're gonna ask a very interesting question, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know, who would you have picked out of a hat in 2006 to direct this movie at that time?
In 2008, you mean?
Oh, sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the development process on these movies stretches, but
Yeah.
sure, 2007, 2008,
2007.
that
Okay,
era.
coming right off of. I mean, listen. To be honest, coming off of Casino Royale, my immediate answer would be like. Sorry, my immediate answer would be let Martin Campbell finish the story.
Or maybe Martin Campbell's not available.
Yeah. This is a wishing scenario.
Mm-hmm.
If it were up to me, regardless of obviously people need to be available or not, I would have locked Martin Campbell down for the first two pictures if the intention is we're going to go back to back and do a direct sequel.
Yeah.
I think it just behooves them, especially when they were trying to go back to that a movie every 2 years model. And I think, to be honest, having John Glenn do back-to-back Bond films worked out very well for them in the sense that, hey, they got him out on time. Whenever there were threads that were carrying through from film to film, whatever little threads that there were, you were able to easily connect them, regardless of how you feel about the films themselves. I think that's one thing that worked in their favor. So personally, I would have just had Martin Campbell do the first two films. That being said, if Martin Campbell wasn't available, because it's very possible that he wouldn't have been available, I would not have minded seeing. I mean, Sam Mendes would have been on there. I would have liked to have seen
John McTiernan.
Yeah,
actually,
that would have been fun.
John McTiernan Bond film would have been pretty awesome.
Can I tell you who would have been one of my top choices and might
go for it.
kind of been an unconventional choice, but Joel Schumacher.
Absolutely not.
I think a lot of people underestimate how versatile and how strong a storyteller Joel Schumacher is because of all the shit he gets for the Batman and Robin blunder. But people are going back and rediscovering how strong the story behind Batman Forever really was.
Yeah.
And when you want to talk about someone dealing with grief, there's your fucking movie model right there. I mean, that movie entirely deals with grief and identity. And I think
what character?
This guy, Batman. Oh yeah, that's his name. Yeah.
Well, this is why I don't agree. Not because I actually do agree with you. I think he has a much stronger body of work than people give him credit for because of.
I mean, I just didn't even finish. I didn't even really finish my point. I mean, fuck the Batman movies. Like, fucking look at Falling Down. Look at 8mm. Look at A Time to Kill. Look at these very like humanistic thrillers that are centered around really the emotional growth of these characters. I mean, even look at like his first screenplay. Look at Car Wash. What an incredibly depthful and strong story to tell about people in a fucking car wash. I mean, he's someone who I think would have been able to dig himself out of the writer's strike issue that the movie was dealing with.
I think the movie would have been fabulous.
It would have been fabulous. It would probably have been more fun.
I mean,
it's an interesting pick. I have to admit that.
But it's an interesting
Elliot Goldenthal James Bond score.
I mean, that I wouldn't be opposed to.
David Arnold did a good job on this one, though.
Yeah.
It's his last one. I guess we should mention that. This is his last Bond movie so far.
Oh, David Arnold. Yeah, you're right about that.
Did a very good job. Considering the theme that he had to draw from was not
great, but he did great.
Yeah, we've
shit
talked
with
about
it.
we've talked about that song. Yeah,
Yeah, but he did good work on this.
he did. He was great. I think he really was the heir to Barry.
Yeah, I think he was. To quickly talk about David Arnold, I think that he was actually able to move very, very nicely from style to style, sometimes from film to film, because his scores for the Brosnan era are very different for his scores from the two Craig films that he did.
Yeah,
But they are undoubtedly Bond, and I actually think Casino Royale is the best James Bond score ever done because how cleverly he uses the Bond theme. He almost uses it as chinks of an armor, where like you hear a little bit of the theme here, a little bit of the theme there, as he's kind of morphing into this character, and you don't hear the proper theme until the very end of the movie. But he does it in such a way that you're never at one point like, when are we going to hear the James Bond theme? Because his music is just so atmospherically James Bond that when you hear the final theme, it's not oh, there's that fucking theme the whole time. It feels earned. It's
yeah, it's very satisfying.
it's very
Yeah.
satisfying. But we'll
He
get
really-
into that. Yeah.
He really does help this movie still maintain its roots in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
it's there are a couple of cues, musical cues from this movie that are very, very, very strong.
It's underestimated, you know. I think it's
Yeah.
very easy for us to overlook the strong suits of this movie and the music being one of them.
Yeah.
It's like that just goes to show how seamless and how strong of a player David Arnold is in this film and like in this franchise in general. It's like it's better to watch a movie and not feel the editing.
Yeah.
And not feel the hand of the director or not feel the music overwhelm, but just feel it. And I think David Arnold was someone who had a strong instinct for that.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you there. But to go back to your original question, this is my objection to Joel Schumacher.
Rejected.
No, because the thing is, I think you raised some interesting points. And my objection has very little to do with the Batman films because I don't think it's fair to judge.
Your objection has been noted.
Okay. The Batman films, I actually quite like Batman Forever, but the thing is, every time he's done anything genre, it's always and Bonds tend to fall like they tiptoe the line of genre, and I think that whenever he does like Lost Boys, Batman Forever, I actually quite like that film. So Batman Forever, I'll throw it in there. The emotion tends to be like very heightened, which if he had directed, say, a Brosnan era Bond film,
Yeah, they are big, aren't they? Even Falling Down is kind of
exactly totally in. I'm totally in. Craig era coming off of Casino Royale with the kind of movie that they're trying to do here. Not sure if I would have gone down that. I would have picked Joel Schumacher for this Bond film. That's my objection. It has very little. I just want to make it clear. What?
Technically, you could kind of argue that Die Another Day is a very Joel Schumacher type of James Bond.
I think you're right about that. You're not wrong about that. It does have a lot of correlation with fucking,
a lot of big drama in that one.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you also look at Schumacher's other films, though, he is also very good at playing in reality in a lot of cases. When especially you look at a movie like Falling Down, which is all shot on location, or if you want to consider
even
a movie like Phone Booth, which is shot entirely in a studio.
That would be his two stuff with Colin Farrell. I would definitely agree with on that. Falling Down, I think, is while gritty. It is kind of big dramatically in terms of emotion,
but it's also there's an important element in this movie missing, which I guess is why I'm so interested in seeing what would have happened if he took the reins on this one, which is like, I don't feel the emotion. I don't feel the depths of,
and there's some flourishes where
grief. I don't care that much about Kurlienko's revenge quest.
Quick.
It is. It's all happening at an express pace, and Schumacher's just someone there who loves to like take his time and choose his shot and work with the actors.
And here's the thing. I agree with all of that. I definitely think this movie needed someone who was able to like take it back. Hey, listen, you want to make a movie under 2 hours? that's fine. But I think that take the extra 15 minutes of screen time to like let everything breathe. That's
Yeah.
really my big problem with this movie. I really have very little problem with the
The-
ideas of the arcs, the thematic material. It just needs all room to breathe. And I think
Yeah.
you're
Just-
right. Joel Schumacher
Just 5
has,
minutes.
yeah,
Just
5 minutes.
add
Add-
5 minutes
right.
of let that scene play a little bit longer. You know,
Exactly. But I think that you know what? Here's an interesting choice. Might seem a little obvious, and it ties in a little bit to our next episode, but having seen Spielberg work with Daniel Craig in Munich,
oh man, this is the ultimate geek. Like,
I'm gonna
but I
go
know
first.
I'm with you, but you know, it's like,
I give a
what if we
fuck.
got the man? You know,
Because you know what? I give a fuck. I give a fuck. I want more Spielberg. I fucking love
I'm with you,
Spielberg.
but you know what I mean. It's like the ultimate, like,
Yeah.
don't say it. Don't say his name.
But
It's
What
just
if we
like,
got?
so-
What if we got?
It's just
Don't
so funny
really
though,
know.
because like, you know, why he didn't ever just step up to the plate.
I don't know. Maybe it's because the thing is for the longest time the producers always wanted, and I think this kind of came to they kind of stopped this with Sam Mendes, and I think that after Spectre they're like, you know what, maybe we need to go back to this credo. They never wanted to be the director to be bigger than the film, so it's kind of like because Steven Spielberg is one of those guys where the minute you put him on a Bond film, it's kind of like this is a Steven Spielberg film, not a Bond film.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
could care less. I just want a good film. The reason I kind of would go
Jesus
with
Christ,
Spielberg,
Liam Neeson in his day as Bond.
yeah, man. But my whole thing with
It's like
the
too
reason,
good to be true, in my opinion.
yeah, but the reason, like, it's
I have a
like,
perfect set
you
of
know,
skills. This
fucking-
martini, I'm gonna shake it, not stir it.
I will find you
Find you
and I will kill you.
because I have a license to kill.
I've been sick.
I'm Dark Man. I mean Bond.
Bond, James Bond.
This is my list.
But you know, like fucking, but the reason I go to Spielberg is because the guy's capable of making a very tense, subtle action film. Well, not maybe. I mean, maybe.
I don't think. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about subtle.
I don't know what calling him. Maybe I call him Munich is.
Well,
an
he
action
was
film.
good. I mean, in his, it's kinetics, suspense,
Yeah,
humor,
Yeah.
like he just was the guy that balanced all of that kind of stuff.
he really
Yeah.
did, and that's the thing. Munich is his most grounded film, but at the same time, it's also very the few action elements are in it. I don't think it's fair to call it action, but
Fucking
when
tense.
when it needs to be intense, it's not afraid to be intense, and it takes its time. And let's.
Oh, I mean, for God's sake, Saving Private Ryan.
Oh
know.
my god, yeah, which I cannot wait to watch.
Oh, you're gonna have a great time, sweetie.
I can't wait. I can't wait. To watch.
It's a laugh riot.
You're
Just
gonna
a-
love it.
Yeah, just there's a quick thing for our listeners. I'm going through films that I should have watched, but I haven't watched during this whole quarantine,
I'd love to
And-
talk that with you.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd love to do a Private Ryan episode.
and I absolutely would love to do that. But you know, I mean, Spielberg seems to be the obvious answer, but fuck it, I'm gonna go with it. I would have been interested to see how he would have dealt with this particular Bond film. You know, this
I just miss Joel Schumacher.
To Joel.
on a separate issue, I do miss him a lot as well.
I met
think-
him once.
Oh yeah.
I heard
Yeah.
I heard he was an incredibly like fun and nice guy.
Just the nicest person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. Very chill.
Why is it that people who make subpar DC movies tend to be just wonderful people?
It's just mean.
He's like, leave Joel alone.
I mean, it's fucking he made the movies he wanted to make, whether or not they were the movies everybody wanted. is a whole
Well,
other
I don't know
fucking
about. I don't
problem.
know if he did. I think he made the movie sometimes people wanted him to make, and
Well,
he,
yeah.
he ended
Uh,
up taking the blame.
It's
know?
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
like
it's a
he
different.
accepted responsibility and good for him, but like if you're trying to tell me that Batman and Robin isn't a 2-hour fucking corporate commercial for toys,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, I know what it is. I know.
yeah. So
Well, what would you
Um,
like to talk about with this movie? Because I feel like
Well,
we're
we kind of brought it up with the dramatic stuff with Forster. There's and I know it's like the editing thing, but like there's moments like where there's dramatic flourishes.
I just
Like
can't think
where
of
like the
last movie I
sound,
saw.
where like where the sound goes out, and it's just
Yeah.
like it's like quiet.
Oh,
like where he's shooting,
It gets her
people,
out of there.
you know,
Yeah, the opera thing.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is because one of my favorite moments in the film is the moment right before that, where he gets the earpiece, he's listening in on the meeting, and then he's like,
That
"Can
is
I
cool.
offer an opinion? Now you guys need a better place to meet." And then they all just start getting up, and he's taking pictures of all of them. I'm like,
Yeah, that
that's
was clever.
so fucking
Yeah, it was
cool.
really clever. I like that. And I like that Mr. White is there hiding in plain sight
Yeah,
and saying, well, I guess people don't like Tosca. And just
Yeah.
is like committed. And that's that little like
yeah,
shoehorn moment where
Pretty great if he had like a snack.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
he's eating goobers.
I'm not I'm unfortunately I'm not familiar at all with Tosca the opera, and so I was out of the loop with the thematic relevance of that.
It's Puccini. It's like based
What-
on a French book or something like that.
what's opera?
Based
I don't know.
on a
I don't know.
French
I'm an
book.
uncultured.
No, I'm not saying it like based on some French shit. No, I didn't mean it like that. Just I think it is. It's like a French story, but I think it's a French book about Italian kings and stuff. Like I know it's known for being violent. It's got suicide and murder. And
I got that much. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. In the editing of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it looks
I
like
did
they
not-
kill the actors, but I
I did
don't
not
know.
like the parallel editing when things pop off during the opera.
Look, I'm Coppola. It's like, no, you're not.
There's nothing. It's just formless.
It is nothing Lebowski.
No,
The idea is there to be artistic, but it lacks any form or clear-cut intention, and so like
It's a try too hard.
yes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. See, the thing is, I think to me the intention is very clear, but it overcorrects on what on getting to where letting the intention land.
Remember
That's
the opera?
really where.
Remember the opera scene in Rogue Nation?
Mission Impossible.
I know we keep bringing it up.
You know
We
what?
keep
Hold on.
bringing up Mission Impossible as a series, and
Right.
I'm
Quick-
sorry.
Quick note. I say, just like we're doing with the Indiana Jones movies, I think that we should do a Mission Impossible episode.
Why not?
So so I just want to put
That's a lot of movies too.
Exactly, but we're gonna put a feather in our cap, and we're gonna figure out what to replace and where to put the Mission Impossible discussion. Because I honestly think that we should just do a Mission Impossible episode.
Sure.
But let's get back to the discussion. Yeah. Go
Well,
ahead.
I think of the opera scene in Rogue Nation, and I know I bring up Mission Impossible probably too much, but it's, in that opera scene, it's like, it's fun, but it is also dramatic. Things are getting revealed. They're trying to uncover who Solomon Lane is. I almost said Nathan Lane. And you're being introduced to you're being introduced to Ilsa, Rebecca Ferguson. There's, is she protecting him? Is she trying to kill him? There's like intrigue going on, and there's humor, and it's not just a like, look at all the death and the killing, just like in this opera.
Hold on, Rick. You can't drop a gem like Nathan Lane in a Mission Impossible movie.
Well, I meant the villain's name in Rogue Nation and Fallout is Solomon Lane, and I almost said Nathan Lane.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Yeah.
I'll
kill you, Ethan. I swear, I will.
Or one of the early Connerys, like, you know everything because you're a man, and I know nothing because I'm a woman.
Right.
You're not a woman.
Ah!
Oh, you bastard.
Right.
Nathan Lane. I love Nathan Lane. Just want to throw that out there. Quick note, by the way. Nathan Lane as Roy Cohn in Angels in America on stage. Surprisingly ruthless.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah.
He was fucking incredible. I never would have guessed that he would be able to play Roy Cohn the way he played it, and he was fantastic.
I could totally see that.
So great.
But it's like a thing with the movie. There's a lot. It's like not enough. It's very energetic. It's way overly frenzied, frantic. Yeah. It's just too much and not enough.
Yeah, too much but not enough. That's
like the whole climax. It's like this is not even satisfying as a climax. You're in the middle of the desert in this hotel. What the hell is that thing? I still don't understand.
Yeah, it would have been a good
so
title
much
for this
breaking
movie.
glass.
I would have liked if this was retitled "Too Much Is Not Enough."
Yeah,
that's funny.
Rick, you stumbled onto a pretty great Bond title there. So
well,
you know what? For our Patreon listeners, we're gonna go fund me a Bond fan film called "Too Much Is Not Enough."
And it's just broken glass. You
It
know,
was
like because they have that whole meetup with like her, the guy she wants to kill, who's a
Yeah.
general in Bolivia, even though I think
Yeah.
the movie is actually shot in the deserts in Chile. The
Unique.
Atacama Desert, I think. Or I might be getting that wrong, and I do apologize. I don't have that in front of me.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, but the
And
general raped and murdered her mother and killed her father.
yeah, and it's so fast. Like there's no real tension built to the climax of the movie. It's just odd.
No, they
like,
just set her and the general up earlier. She tries to kill him, fails,
Yeah.
and then she meets him later, kills him.
It's.
but you're not satisfied at her kill. I guess because you're not supposed to, because killing's bad.
Well, but here's the thing. Like the tension.
I mean,
like,
it is, but
her
in the
being
movie,
her being pissed off at Bond for taking that moment away from her could have actually been some great character tension between the two of them.
or her or him seeing it,
Yeah.
and like he sees that she's like it doesn't really affect her. It's like, well, that's that.
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of that.
Literally happens off camera.
There you go. I will say though, I gotta ask because this is probably the moment that confuses me the most, and in a movie that like yes, it's it's a little haphazard, very haphazard in its editing. For the most part, actually pretty straightforward. But this is one moment that really does confuse me. He's gonna mercy kill her because she's triggered by the fire. How do we feel?
I guess she doesn't want to burn alive. I get it. Fire sucks.
I mean, well, it does. I
guess because that's the thing. It's so portentously done because he's like rocking back and forth like she's 5 years old, and she's like, no, not this way.
It just did it. It's just the way it was done. I can't even blame it on the editing or anything like that.
It is the editing.
I don't think it's the editing in this case. It's just the idea of it. The way it's is.
I was sitting there thinking, like, is she afraid of fire? Well, I guess fire is bad, so I guess I would be rocking.
Pretty
back
scary stuff, yeah.
Especially old building, and you're in the middle of it. I guess it's just odd because it's like I guess they're trying to evoke her as a little girl freaked out, but it's like, yeah, but she wasn't in a fire, so it's not quite poetic.
And she's also not a little girl.
Isn't she in a
That's fucking dumb.
It's like, I thought she was an agent. Isn't that revealed?
She's a Bosnian agent.
But she's like, she's a little girl.
She's cleaning her fucking gun before they go to that gasoline hotel. Like every single fucking room has a tank of gasoline hiding in the wall somewhere for some fucking reason.
It's really odd.
And the general and some other guy talk about it and they're like, yeah, this whole facility's made out of mortar and it hasn't been fumigated and it's chock full of asbestos and gasoline and all these things. And the guy literally says, sounds unstable. Two cervezas.
Okay, so I want to throw something out there though. The subtitles for all the scenes that aren't in English suck. Because they're horrible because.
But I want to know what the taxi cab driver is saying.
But he means the translation.
But I want to know what he is saying. It's important.
And John, that's the point. You're not getting it. Like you're not getting what he's really saying because I watched the movie on iTunes and for whatever reason that version doesn't have the fucking subtitles. I don't know why.
It's on Netflix.
Well, I mean, I have the Blu-ray, but but whatever. I just watched it on iTunes because I have my fucking Apple TV set up. But I'm watching the iTunes version. It doesn't have the subtitles. This podcast is
brought to you by iTunes and Netflix.
But so I'm watching the movie on iTunes. It doesn't have the subtitles, and luckily I speak Spanish, so I was able to follow it just fine. And without the subtitles, those scenes don't seem nearly as stupid because I'm actually paying attention. I actually paid attention to the Spanish language, and it's like, oh, the Spanish language, and how the dialogue, the actors are bouncing off each other. It's like, okay, I get it. It's cool.
I'm a crazy Bolivian taxi driver. Yeah, like
pretty much. But with those
cállate. That's all fucking the one guy keeps saying.
Yeah, it's like, wow, those subtitles are terrible. So yeah, I think it's fair to say we kind of like talked about just about everything that we wanted to talk about.
Well, they don't retcon, but like now Giancarlo Esposito's character is a good guy.
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily a retcon.
Come on. At the end of Casino Royale, it's like, yeah, you were the traitor, and they fucking take him away. And then he shows up, or like Bond goes to his door because he's like, "Hey, what's up, bud?" And you're like, "Why is that guy that got
Well, he's
taken
run
away?"
out of resources at that point,
No.
and MI6 won't support him anymore. He's off the radar,
Yeah.
so he goes to him because he doesn't have any more contacts in that
The
area.
card is canceled.
Yeah, it's not a retcon, not in the strict sense of it at the very least. At the end of Casino Royale, it's up in the air whether Vesper set him up to take the fall for her or not. And at the end of the movie, when M asks him, I guess this clears Mathis, and he says it could have been a double blind, keep sweating him. That was meant to be a character moment. Where
Okay, fair enough.
Trust anybody, but it's not a retcon in the strictest.
All right, fair enough.
It's left up.
I stand cleared and correct.
Yeah. That being said, it should have been clear that Mathis was cleared of wrongdoing. I think that they could have done a better job of setting that up where, oh shit, like you kind of have to eat crow and kind of try to trust the guy who
he knocks on his door with flowers. He's like, "Hey,
you know,
sorry,
guy. Oh my god. Okay. So yeah, I think we covered it. I think this was a really good discussion for a movie that was just kind of blah. John,
it's just so disappointing. You know, he didn't talk anything about production design or cinematography or any of the technical qualities really besides the editing in this movie. And I think it just goes to show, like, the movie is just not impressive to me. I think it's just very, very, like you said, it's very blah. And the facility that they blow up at the end is just not interesting to look at all, inside and out. Can I also just point out the really stupid part about the end of this movie really quick before we close the book on it? Because I noticed there was this interesting moment where the villain, what's his name again? Green. Green is drifting out. Yeah, Green. He's drifting out into the wasteland, and then Bond says, "Wait here," and then they cut ahead. They do a little dissolve, and Bond catches up with him and gives him a can of motor oil. And then like
it's a energy drink.
Like it's a beverage you get out of like a vending machine. But that whole idea, I don't know if that was maybe lifted from another Ian Fleming like piece or something. There was something very specifically novel about it. But then I thought about it more.
It's kind of Mad Max.
Well, I noticed at the end of the film that he decides not to seek revenge by just brutally murdering the guy who's responsible for the death of Vesper.
But is he?
Well, he's a dumb thing, right? You can kill that guy. He's a pawn. Green, on the other hand, is someone who has palatable information about this evil organization, and you let him die in the middle of the fucking desert when you could have picked him up and thrown him in the back of your fucking car.
Take him with you.
And actually gotten to the bottom of things. And instead, he's more brutal towards that guy who would have helped him solve the real problem and the real reason for Vesper's death. He should have just fucking shot that guy. And also, he sets up that you only need one bullet. Olga Kurylenko gets her revenge, and there's no just sort of like, how did that feel? Do you feel absolved? Do you feel better? It's just over. And then at the end, we confront Bond, and there's this feeling of absolution in that he decided to rise above his quest for vengeance and turn in the guy who could hopefully be a stronger asset with the information that he has. But why the fuck would you kill Green then?
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I agree with. I think that. God damn it! I lost my train of thought.
Because there's nothing to counter, man. He's right.
No, well, here's the thing.
How can you justify it? Like,
we didn't have a writer available, is why.
I mean, look, I actually didn't mind.
You need a writer to figure that out?
I actually had very little problem with the fact that he just leaves in the fucking desert and he leaves him with a can of motor oil to drink. I actually thought that
brutal.
was kind of badass. I thought that was
Why the
dope.
fuck didn't he shoot that guy at the end?
Yeah, but he's an agent who should be getting info.
But here's the thing. It's implied that he does get info, but we hear none of it. That's why that whole thing is so unfulfilling to me. Because it's like, I told you everything you want to know about Quantum. It's like, hey, I want to know everything you want to know about Quantum. As the audience member, can I hear some shit? So that was kind of like my thing. Like what's the info? What's all this about? So it's like you get your whole thing is that you're looking for Dominic Green because you're trying to get info to get to the next guy, and then we don't get to we don't get to be there for that moment. It kind of was just like whatever.
It's just dumb. I think like Craig should have just caught up with him out in the desert, and then the guy should have said like, "Just do it, just fucking waste me," and he should have just been like, "No, you're not gonna get away that easy. I'm gonna get down to the bottom of this problem. I'm gonna find out who's responsible for killing Vesper, and you're gonna be helping me.
And I'm going to get my quantum of solace.
I mean, it would have been pretty cool if like he takes him out to the middle of the desert and he's like he thinks he's about to get shot, and then you just see like a fucking MI6 helicopter when taking in. It's like I'm not gonna let you off that easy, Mr. Green.
Or
it would have shown growth.
Or
Yeah,
cut back to Bond now on a new road driving. He stops off somewhere and trunk opens and he says, "Time to get out." Movie ends.
A little bookend. It would have been nice. I just think it's so convoluted what the fuck I'm supposed to learn.
And the next one opens a la Casino Royale with him confronting that fucking guy.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes to show like
you don't need a writer, you need me.
But it goes to show like why the themes and the lesson to be learned for Bond is so muddled by the end. Because by the end he's like, "No, I'm not going to kill him," and I'm like, "But you brutally second-degree murdered someone out in the desert."
The whole movie.
Yeah.
this is the thing. It's not about whether he learns about the value of revenge. And I agree, this wasn't done as well, but this is my takeaway. It's about allowing himself to feel to actually feel the betrayal and the guilt that he has over Vesper's death. Yeah. And and the reason his confrontation with the agent at the end of the movie still, for me, has some gravitas is not because he's learned a lesson that revenge is bad. It's that he's actually allowing himself to have closure. Now,
I think that last scene needed to be more powerful then. The conversation needed to be 10 times stronger.
Yeah.
But your point is valid. I think your point's valid. And I think that just made me think like, well, then that's what needed. The confrontation at the end to be a better conversation.
Exactly. Because the thing is, when I do my best when I look at a film and what I would do differently, I try my best to not think, okay, I'm going to rip this apart and start from scratch, but more like, what were they trying to accomplish here? How do they accomplish it? And how would I tweak it so it lands with the power that it's meant to land with?
Can I add to that?
Just give me a moment.
Yeah. Finish
that. That is my takeaway from what the intention of the film was. I agree with Rick that moment needed to land heavier and it needed to be done more in a more powerful way. That moment that with the agent that he meets up at the end, what he does with Dominic Green is almost irrelevant because to him, he's just a mark. He's not really, he has no emotional attachment to Dominic Green at all. He's just the mark to get to the guy who is his emotional catharsis. Is it done as well as it could have been? No, but that's my takeaway from it. And that's why it's still like, I like what you did here. Probably could have tweaked it better. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. Well, I think just to get those emotionally earned beats that we're talking about, if we were going to go in and surgically re-edit the script, I'll tell you how I would have started this whole fucking movie. I would have made the epilogue the prologue. And in the prologue, he would have shot and killed that fucking guy. And he still would have not been able to resolve anything because they'd been like, well, you did it. You killed the guy who killed Vesper. Do you feel any better? Because we couldn't get any information out of him. Did it change anything for you? And he can just be like, no, it didn't. And that
can open up the whole problem with that he's experiencing. It's just like, I'm someone who sought revenge. I got it. And now I have only my grief left to reconcile, and I don't know how, because I thought that would have absolved me. I thought that would have emotionally cleansed me, but instead it's created more problems, because now not enough people can die till I get my revenge. Not even the person who was directly responsible is good enough. I have to find out what's behind all of this to make any real concrete change. Then it would have made pursuing Green that much more meaningful, and keeping him from dying at the end would have helped resolve that.
I don't agree, because I don't think that was the point that the movie was trying to make. I think it very much takes its cue from the book of You Only Live Twice, which comes right after On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where kind of Bond doesn't know what to do with himself, and he's kind of like screwing up. I mean, he's not quite screwing up as badly as he does in the book, but I think that there's an element, the whole emotional crux of the movie, that of the attempt was that he's not dealing with it, period. It's not that, oh, if I just kill this guy, it's all over, we're good. And the thing is, the way you would start it, we would have no idea that he has any nefarious intent. We just know that he's the guy that Vesper blackmailed him for. So we don't. As far as we know, at this point in the very beginning of Quantum of Solace, we just think that the boyfriend is innocent in all of this. We have no frame of reference whether he is part of Quantum or not. And when you find out at top of the film that he could be part of Quantum, like, Bond doesn't even want to deal with that, because it's like, okay, great. So it's just I have two people that are kind of like are part of this betrayal on her part, and it's about him not even wanting to fucking deal with it in any sort of healthy way. And the catharsis at the end of the film is he does deal with it. He actually starts to allow him to accept that he loved this woman, that he felt betrayed by this woman, that this woman made him feel something. And again, it's not done as well as it could have been, but that is the arc of the story of what I could discern from what the attempt of the movie. And what you're suggesting is a very different thing altogether. I don't agree that that's what would have fixed what this movie was trying to do. It's not that I necessarily think it's a bad take what you're saying. I just think that it's not conducive to the story they were trying to tell. And I'll be the first to admit that they did not succeed in making that story land. But that is what I got out of the script. That is what I got out of the film, in terms of what it's trying to do.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I don't think anything can really save this movie.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think we can agree that the final result is at the very least disappointing, even if I enjoyed it more than you did.
Oh yeah, it's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I especially coming off of Casino Royale, I was let down by this flick, but it is a movie that's kind of, that I've kind of warmed a little bit more to. And there are a bunch of folks who put this in like their bottom 5 Bond films or something, and I think that's just objectively ridiculous.
Like, no, I'll give it credit for being, at the least, having the pretense of having like a meaning,
yeah,
as opposed to the lark of some of the other ones. Like I'm really was not a fan of License to Kill. I kind of would say I like this a little better than that.
I you know what, I do too, and I actually really enjoy License to Kill. I think it's underrated, but I think overall, after rewatching Quantum, I think I enjoy Quantum a little bit more than License to Kill.
Yeah.
Even if License to Kill has more of those Bond flourishes that I tend to enjoy, and that's
similar setup.
I think honestly, if I have to compare, I think I enjoy License to Kill better, but that's because I think it just sticks to its guns. It's a story about this, and it's seen through to the end, and I like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. I like that, not just it's over, whatever that was.
I mean, the whole thing with License to Kill, but that's a whole nother episode that we already did, I guess.
All right, so We're gonna wrap up our discussion of Quantum with our favorite little game, their 3 questions game.
Oh yeah.
All right. John,
Hmm.
let's start with you. Who is your favorite original character in this film?
I didn't have one.
Okay.
And what's your favorite Bond kill?
What's your favorite Bond kill?
I can't remember.
And your favorite Bond one-liner? Tony, what's your favorite original character?
Okay. Funny enough, I actually do have an answer.
Sorry, I hate to like fucking just.
I couldn't resist
But
the bit.
There's fucking nothing. Sorry, I got nothing for you. Being purely honest, I did not like anything.
Okay. You heard it here. You heard it here, folks. He did not like anything about this film.
No, that's not what I meant. I mean, I didn't have a favorite kill. There wasn't anything that stood out to me where I was like, oh, why'd you see that? Because I couldn't. I didn't see anything. It was too fast cut. Favorite one-liner? I want to hear what you guys say. Favorite original character? What characters? Like, there's nothing. There's nothing to grab onto. Is it Green? Is it the General? No, neither of them are that interesting.
Okay. So my favorite original character is Camille. I think that, even if she's not as well developed as some of the other, and I mean from a character perspective, before anybody goes with a dirty mind goes out thinking I'm thinking otherwise. I think even though the character wasn't as developed as well as some other Bond leading ladies from the past, just from this, because the script does have its issues. I do like her performance. I think that she is vulnerable, which allows me to warm up to her. But she is a very capable character with a lot of her own agency. I think she does when the character works at her best, especially in the few quiet moments that she has with James Bond. She does kind of act like a nice counterpoint to his more harder edge, and how with her it's like she has a similar darkness, but it comes more from from almost like a more innocent place. Like it's weird. She's naively dark, and I kind of dug that about the character. My favorite Bond kill. It's kind of non consequential, but there's a moment when he's in Haiti and he's kind of investigating. It's when he's investigating at this point a character named Mr. Slate, and he runs into a quantum agent who he throws through a whole bunch of glass, and then he ends up killing. Kind of takes his jacket, kind of like makes himself neat. I just really enjoyed that kill because there's a moment where he literally stabs the guy and is holding him, and he's kind of just very casually just waiting for him to die because he knows that in like 10 seconds he's just gonna die, and it's just so like cold and taciturn. And I was actually I thought that was a pretty cool thing that I hadn't seen in a Bond film.
That is a good moment.
Yeah, which was like, okay, that's actually really fucking cool. Like, and then he like takes himself out. He like puts some ice, he stops the bleeding, puts on a jacket, and
his jacket.
Yeah, his own. Yeah, this Mr. Slate's jacket
That transforms into a shirt when he leaves.
Yeah, for sure.
Some weird continuity flaw there for some reason. When
No,
he exits the hotel room, he has the jacket on, and then when he goes down to the lobby, it's just a shirt.
No,
I don't think that's
it's
right.
the reverse.
I
He
think
goes up. He goes up with a shirt and he comes down with a jacket. There's no continuity error there. I promise you.
I'm not gonna turn it on right now and check.
Yeah.
I'm not.
But regardless, like that's I like that kill. I like that moment. As far as my favorite Bond one-liner, I actually really dig the one in the opera at the opera when these guys are talking some quantum nonsense.
Quantum Bond.
Quantum Bond. Oh, you know what? I take it back. That's not my favorite one. Although that's a good one. It's actually when he's at the party, at the Green Planet party, and Dominique tells him, "My friends call me Dominique," and I'm sure they do. I don't know what it is about the way he just delivered that line so casually. It was just like, ooh. I don't know. It felt like a really, really solid burn. So I just kind of I'm taken with his with Daniel Craig's performance in this. So And I just really dig little moments like that. So that's probably my favorite Bond one-liner. I think it's more of an acting moment, but I just think the way he delivers it is really, really nice. Rick, do you have any answers for these questions?
I think so. I forgot what the questions are. Favorite
So,
new character?
yeah,
Yeah, I guess the theoreticalness of Camille is nice.
yeah,
I do like that they don't do a bullshit like, hey, they went through stuff and now they're in love thing with
yeah.
Ben.
I like that as well.
You know, I complained about that with Spectre. I complained about that with Goldeneye, where it's just like, I don't know. I'm not trying to be like woke or anything, but it's like, you know, it's a little bit like, oh, we went through this life or death thing. I want to fuck now. It's like, I don't know if it works like that. But maybe it does for Bond. And I kind of like that with this one. It was like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, they kiss each other at the end, but it's more like a tender thing as opposed to like,
Yeah,
we've got the hots for each other thing.
Yeah.
Favorite Bond kill? I like the theoreticalness of the bell fight, the bell tower fight.
yeah,
You
I
know,
want to like it. I
the
want to.
the spin of it, you know, the spin move, and then bam,
yeah.
you know, the shot. In terms of one-liners, I think the only one that gave a little pizzazz of Bondness was definitely the opening one of Time to Get Out.
That was good.
You know,
Yeah. I like that one. I like the one in the opera. And the opera scene was like, I think you get. Can I offer an opinion? I think you guys need to find a better place to meet.
yeah, a little cheekiness from Bond is always good.
Yeah, I really dug that. So yeah, guys, I think this was a really good talk. I think we can kind of all. I think we're maybe at different places of disappointment with this movie, but I think we more or less agree on what the issues are. And I think once again comes down to it took it took some of us more out of the movie than others, but I think we can all kind of agree where this movie kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Um,
Some of us think it's a crime against humanity. Some of us just think it doesn't work.
I mean, I just think these fucking people need to be fired. I can't believe the fucking movie got released like that.
I mean, well, it did take them 4 years to make another one, and they kind of had a whole new team, so kind of got your wish.
You gotta rethink these mistakes. You know, I think I'm happy. I'm relieved that I spent so much time sitting and watching and analyzing this movie because it means I don't need to come back to it ever. So thanks.
Well, I think that's as good of a note to end as any when talking about Quantum of Solace. It's a tricky one to dissect, but I'm glad that we got to do it today, fellas. Folks, thank you guys so much for listening. You Know His Name will return with our discussion of the Indiana Jones series, and there are going to be some hot takes in that one. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So from all of us at You Know His Name, please stay safe out there, and remember, nobody does it better. Good night.